want to thank Nancy and also Nancy Waldrop and the ladies here at the Blue Ridge Republican Club. It's just wonderful to be back out here. I guess I met a lot of you when I was running for Congress. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kenny West. I live in Hayesville, North Carolina. And there's a little story about that. When people say, where's Hayesville? There's a lot of people over here that don't even know where Hayesville is. So I tell them, I used to travel all over this country, and I would tell them, they say, well, Kenny, where is Hayesville? And I said, well, it's about 35 miles from the Tennessee border, about 5 miles from the Georgia border. And they said, I said, that little far part of West North Carolina, I can't picture it. I said, it's 16 miles from where they found Eric Rudolph. Everybody knew exactly where it was. Because everybody knows they found it in the back of a Save-A-Lot dumpster over there in Murphy. So that's where I live. I live there with my wife, Wilma West. Her name's Wilma Sue, from both her grandmothers. We've been married going on 34 years. We lived there, we moved up there about 12 years ago because that's originally where her parents and her grandparents were from. We brought 2 children up there. They're both adults now. My daughter is a school teacher, and so is my wife. That's why she can't be here tonight, because she generally goes with me. Anybody that knows me, my wife is generally there with me. She's the best part of me, to be honest with you. Anybody can put up with me more than 5 years has got to be an angel, so I married the only angel in this earth, I guess. She's a good person. She's my best friend, and I'll tell you, she's the better half of me. She spoke for me several times when I was running for Congress. But she's over there tonight. She works for the disenfranchised kids. In other words, she's a teacher. And the kids that have a struggle like autism and things like that, she's been doing this for 10 years. And she works in doing the thing called Busy Bee. And what that means is they make mugs. They teach these children how to adapt in the world when they don't really have a lot of places to go. So they're teaching them how to do things. So they got this big order to make something for the football team over there. Hayesville's noted for their football teams. When they want something, everybody moves in and does it. Well, my wife's making some shirts for them over there, and they ordered 200 of them. So her and this other lady's been doing this now for the last week and a half, and they thought they'd get through until they wanted a few mugs. So she was finishing that up tonight. My daughter is a school teacher over there. She's a biology major, graduated Western Carolina University, and she's a high school teacher. It's a parent's dream to have your daughter living close to you when they're married. She's been married 3 years today. 3 years, and that's just wonderful. Her husband is a deputy sheriff, so we feel very fortunate. My son, I just moved him out to Asheville. I was out here, I guess 3 weeks ago, moving him into an apartment. Have we got any diabetics in here? Well, there's a place down there called Four Leaf Clover. It's a brand new place. That's where I get all my diabetic supplies, but he just started with them. They're based out of Hayesville, and he just leased a 4,500 square foot building off exit 36. Exit 36 off of 26 down there. It's a huge part, and they're expanding. They've doubled the size in about 6 months. So it's nice to see some jobs are actually doubling in this economy, because you don't hear that too often. But what I came here to talk to you about is where we are and how we got here, but about more or less how can we get and how do we create this vision of going somewhere else. Well, you know, when I was growing up, many of us in here, in fact, the baby boomers, many of us in here had choices in our life. If we didn't sit up here and like somebody at a job, or we found another job where we wanted to go to, we had a choice to do that. We could send her a resume, or just didn't like our boss for whatever reason, we'd quit and go to another job. Well, right now, we're in a predicament. I was very fortunate to have my son get a job, because he has been looking now for 3 months. I don't know if y'all noticed, but right now the unemployment rate for kids between the age of 19 and 25 is 26%. That means more than 1 out of every 4 are not going to find a job. And that's graduating college. Now that's scary, because we never had that. We could always go out and find a job. Lord, I used to work at AT&T. When they went on strike or got laid off, I could have gotten 2 jobs to make up the income. But you can't find that now. And the work we are doing now, you're having to work twice as hard today to get the same thing you did 2 years ago. But the one thing I'm assured of is this is America. This is America. This is the greatest country God's ever put on this earth. And I will tell you this, because of our founding fathers and because of what they believed in and the vision they created. And when they declared with the Declaration of Independence that this country would no longer be subservient to any kind of people that want to sit up here and tell us we can't pray anymore. That tell us that we can't sit up here, they can have taxes without representation anymore. We declared that back in July 6. You know, there's a lot of people that talk about the Constitution. It is the most important document in the world next to the Holy Bible. That's my opinion. In fact, that's a fact, and if you want to argue, argue with God. Because I can tell you this, the Constitution couldn't stand without the Bible, but the Bible can stand without the Constitution. Always has been and always will be. But our Declaration of Independence, without it, do any of us believe that the Constitution would have ever been written? No. But we don't talk about the Declaration a lot. We talk about the Constitution. I can tell you the blood and the treasures that we have were fought and paid the price for from our forefathers for the Declaration of Independence to get the tyrants out of here that allowed me to sit up here and talk without persecution, that allowed him to come up here and say what he thinks about another official without being scolded and ridiculed. Why? Because this is America. This is what this country is all about. Our inalienable rights come from one person and one person only, and that's the good Lord Jesus Christ in my mind. Now, understand this. It says in there, along with those rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Why is it in that order? Because without life, there's no liberty. Think about this. They didn't say liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness. They put life first for a reason. Because there were 56 signers. And out of the 56 signers of the Declaration, 52 of them were Christians. 52. That's remarkable. You try to get 52 Christians up there in Congress right now, you'd have to look up under rocks and everything else. The ones that want to walk it. There's a lot of talking ones around here. But action speaks louder than words. And then you've got the pursuit of happiness. You can't pursue happiness without liberty. You can't do it. It's impossible. Our founding fathers understood that. They understood that because of that, it gave us our Bill of Rights. Our First Amendment. What does the First Amendment say? Freedom of speech. Freedom of religion. Freedom of the press. Sometimes we should add a little disclaimer on there, and the truth. Because sometimes you just don't get the truth from the press. You get editorialism. And we can see that in the Asheville Citizen. Thank goodness we don't get a lot of this stuff out there in Hayesville. We've got the Clay County Progress. And they make progress on the Asheville Citizen out there. But I will tell you, this country is great. I'll never forget the very first time that I voted for Ronald Reagan. He's the very first president I ever voted for. I'm 54 years old. In 1 month, 2 months, I'll be 54. And we were at a time of despair back then. Anybody can remember the 21.5% interest rates? Can anybody remember the 13.5% inflation rate? 10.5% unemployment rate. We didn't have a China to borrow money from. The Bill Gates of the world didn't exist. There was no billionaires back then. You had the DuPonts. You didn't have a lot of wealth that you have right now. But we had a leader. We had a man that came into the office and made us believe again after we just sat up here and had our very inner self destroyed by Jimmy Carter that sat up here and told us all that Iran was a bigger boy than we were. Ronald Reagan said, when I come in here, if you don't let these hostages go, you're going to pay the price. He didn't have to sit up here and bully them. He just made a statement because leadership and character will always win the day. Always win the day. That's why Ronald Reagan was the greatest president of my lifetime. The greatest president of my lifetime. But he taught us one thing. He taught us to believe in this country again. So I'll just tell you, this country is where we are because God has blessed this country. We're the most giving country in the world. Now there's a lot of things going on right now. There is a lot of things going on. I remember when, look, we ran for Congress just 2 years ago and things have gotten better. How many of us were very proud of the fact that the Republicans took over the United States Congress in 2010? Was that not great? I'm telling you, that was the most remarkable thing. I stayed up all night long. That was the night that I didn't sleep. I stayed up all night till the very last one came in. And it came in actually 2 days later. But I stayed up and I was excited about it. And they've done a good job, but they've got a handful of stuff dealt to them. One thing they've got is a president who, for whatever reason, despises this country. But he don't understand America. You've got to understand freedom before you can understand America. You've got to understand liberty before you can appreciate our founding fathers. Because we have this kind of liberty, and most people don't have it. They don't have it. Ronald Reagan described it one time as what? The shining light on the hill. The shining light. Let me just tell you, that light's still there. The problem is, we, and I believe you said it right just a while ago, Mike, we've sat up here, and while the rest of the world was planning, while the progressives, I call them, the Democrats, the liberal thinkers, I call them stinking thinking. That's what it's called to me, stinking thinking. Because that's what got us to where we are. But why? It wasn't because we didn't care. Most of us was raising our children. We were going on vacations. We were going to church with our kids. We were hoping that our federal government, our state government, our local government, in fact, sometimes we didn't even pay it no mind because we took it for granted. This thing we call freedom. We took it for granted. But during that time, things were going on. As I used to describe it a lot, an undercurrent. You couldn't see it. But if you walked out in the water, it'd take you down. The problem is, we never walked out in the water. We never got involved. It's time that we get involved again. And I honestly believe it's going to be the Republican Party that's going to get this thing turned around because of their principles. Not the principles of what happened between 2006 and 2008. The principles of what Ronald Reagan stood for in the early 80s when we were at this same place in our life. So don't get down about it. Understand there's fixing to be an exciting change in this country. But unfortunately, we had to go through a lot of pain. And it's going to get a little bit more painful. Because in order to fix the problem, this manifested itself over the last, I'd say about 35 or 40 years. But in the last 3 years, it's sort of come to a head. It's like a big pimple. It's got about ready to pop. But we need to get him out of there before it does. We need to get this man out of there. We need to get Bev Perdue out of there. We need to get Heath Schuler out of there. Yes, there's going to be, I know of 6 people right now that I know of that's running, okay? I don't care if there's 100 running. God bless them. The reason being is because we've got to do whatever we can do to get the man, to get Heath Schuler out of office. Why? Because he has, and he has deliberately done things to keep himself in good grace with his party. But this country is bigger than Heath Schuler. This country is more determined than Barack Obama. One man in one Congress is no bigger than the Constitution. The Constitution is each and every American living in this country. That's why it starts off with we the people. It don't start off with we the government. It does not start off with we the state government. It says we the people. We decide whether or not we like you, and we're going to keep you. And we do it every 2 years for Congress. I hear people talk about term limits. We talked about it at the last meeting. They said, Kenny, do you believe in term limits? And I said, well, God, our founding fathers did. They got 2-year terms for congressmen. They got 6-year for senators. And they got 4 for the president. They got term limits. But because of we've sat at home, and we didn't vote the rascals out. The only reason they stay in there because they get more votes than the guys that don't get as many votes. It's just that simple. They do it that way. I'd hate to know that we gave Heath Schuler 6-year terms and he just got elected and we had 4 more to put up with him. I'd hate to know that because a lot of people are like, give the congressman 6-year terms. What happens if we elect a scoundrel like we did with Barack Obama? You see what I'm saying? Our founding fathers were smarter than us. They were a whole lot smarter. We don't have to rewrite the Constitution. We just got to abide by it. And we've got to remember that Declaration of Independence is about America. It's about that shining light on the hill.